Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottama Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayed Nashtaprayesha Bhadresho Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtike. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 23, The Dynasties of the Sons of Yayati. Text number 33. Tesham tu shat pradhananam. Tesham tu shat pradhananam. Pruthusravasa Atmajaha. Pruthusravasa Atmajaha. Dharma Nama Ushana Tasya. Dharmo Namoshana Tasya. Ayamedha Shatasya Yat. Ayamedha Shatasya Yat. Tesham tu shat pradhananam. Pruthusravasa Atmajaha. Dharmo Namoshana Tasya. Hayamedha Shatasya Yat. Tesham tu yat pradhananam. Pruthusravasa Atmajaha. Dharmo Namoshana Tasya. Hayamedha Shatasya Yat. Tesham tu shat pradhananam. Pruthusravasa Atmajaha. Dharmo Namoshana Tasya. Hayamedha Shatasya Yat. Tesham tu shat pradhananam. Pruthusravasa Atmajaha. Dharmo Namoshana Tasya. Hayamedha Shatasya Yat. Tesham, out of so many sons, two but Shat Pradhananam, of whom there were 6 foremost sons. Pruthushravasaha, of Pruthushrava. Atmajaha, the son. Dharmaha, Dharma. Nama, by the name. Ushana, Ushana. Tasya, his. Ayameda Shatasya, of 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas. Of 100 Ashwamedha sacrifices. Yat, he was the performer. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Among these many sons, 6 were the foremost, such as Pruthushrava and Pruthukirti. The son of Pruthushrava was known as Dharma, and his son was known as Ushana. Ushana was the performer of 100 horse sacrifices. Please repeat this translation after me. Among these many sons, 6 were the foremost, such as Prutushrava and Prutukirti. The son of Prutushrava was known as Dharma, and his son was known as Ushana. Ushana was the performer of 100 horse sacrifices. Text 34. I'll read the rest of the verses till the end of this chapter, 38, by myself. Tatsuto ruchakastasya panchasannatmaja shunu purujid rukma rukmeshu pruthu jamagha samgditaha. Translation. The son of Ushana was Ruchaka, who had 5 sons, Purujit, Rukma, Rukmeshu, Pruthu, and Jamagha. Please hear of these sons from me. Text 35 and 36. Jamagastu aprajo apyanayam bharyam shaibyapatir bhayat navindachatru bhavanad bhojyam kanyam aharashit rathastham tam nirikshyaha shaibyapatim amarshita keyam kuhakamatsthanam ratham aropiteti vai snushatavete smayanti patimabravit. Translation of these 2 verses. Jamaga had no sons, but because he was fearful of his wife Shaibya, he could not accept another wife. Jamaga once took from the house of some royal enemy a girl who was a prostitute, but upon seeing her, Shaibya was very angry and said to her husband, "My husband, you cheater, who is this girl sitting upon my seat on the chariot?" Jamaga then replied, "This girl will be your daughter-in-law." Upon hearing these joking words, Shaibya smilingly replied. Text 37. Aham bandhya sapatni cha snushame yujyate katham janayishyasi yam ragni tasyeyam upayujyate. Translation. Shaibya said, "I am sterile and have no co-wife. How can this girl be my daughter-in-law? Please tell me." Jamaga replied, "My dear queen, I shall see that you indeed have a son and that this girl will be your daughter-in-law. Text 38. Anvamodanta tad vishve deva pitara evacha shaibya garbham adhat kale kumaram sushuve shubham savidarbha iti prokta upayeme snusham sateen. Translation. Long, long ago, Jamaga had satisfied the demigods and pitas by worshipping them. Now, by their mercy, Jamaga's words came true. Although Shaibya was barren, by the grace of the demigods, she became pregnant and in due course of time gave birth to a child named Vidarbha. Before the child's birth, the girl had been accepted as a daughter-in-law, and therefore Vidarbha actually married her when he grew up. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 9th canto, 23rd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Dynasties of the Sons of Yayati. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Some extraordinary facts are given here, and we have to carefully understand them. In the previous verse, which was discussed in the previous Sunday, it was mentioned that the famous Shashabindu had 10,000 wives, and by each wife he begot a lakh of sons. Therefore, the number of his sons was 10,000 lakhs. And in today's verse, 33rd verse, among these many sons, huge number of sons, 10,000 lakh sons, 6 were the foremost. So you can understand, when there are so many sons, these 6 sons who are described the foremost will excel those many huge number of sons. They'll be exceptionally good. Only then they can stand out in such a huge number of sons, among such huge number of sons. So their names are mentioned. Others' names are not mentioned, such as Prutushrava and Prutukirti. The son of Prutushrava was known as Dharma, and his son was known as Ushana. Ushana was the performer of 100 horse sacrifices. And to perform a horse sacrifice is not a small thing. It is extraordinary event if a king performs a horse sacrifice. Because the arrangements have to be made very, very elaborately. They have to get a horse for offering a sacrifice of a particular description. So the king has to arrange to search for such a horse with these characteristics. So if with great difficulty they find one, then he may do one horse sacrifice, provided not merely getting the horse of the proper description, he has to have sufficient wealth. And then he has to get qualified brahmanas who can chant the mantras which will be effective in performing that horse sacrifice. Qualified brahmanas. And even if there are qualified brahmanas, it's not that these brahmanas simply will agree because they have the qualification and a king is ready and equipped to do one horse sacrifice. No. A brahmana who is qualified and a king who is willing to do such a horse sacrifice, wanting to do it, and has got all the arrangements, necessary arrangements ready, finding the brahmana is difficult. And after a brahmana is found, for the brahmana to accept priesthood is even more difficult. Why? Because these brahmanas who agree to perform such sacrifices, they have to undergo so much of tapasya after the sacrifice to actually absorb, to free themselves from so much of karma they get by performing such sacrifices. Huge karma they get. Just like in an ordinary shraddha, to give you an example, one priest was telling me, when my father passed away, the priest who was performing the rituals after the departed soul has quit the body. So he was telling me that so much of rituals involves giving so much of dana to the priest. So he's telling, I'm accepting this dana, but with it comes so much of karma. So in order to free myself from the karma, next 1 year, I cannot accept to perform any other ritual. I cannot be the priest next 1 year. Therefore, along with the dana that is supposed to be given, he is given sufficient grains and vessels and so many things for his subsistence next 1 year. And since he is not doing anything else other than just maintaining himself, he has to do so much of tapasya to engage himself. He cannot just sit idle. I've got sufficient grains, I'll just sit idly and I'll just sit and eat and sleep. No, he has to be engaged. So he has to do 1 lakh Gayatri Japa and some 1 lakh of some other Prashitta Homa or Japa or so many things like that. And he says, this priest told me, generally they go away to a remote place, especially in the forest. And they have to accept vows of living simply on, sometimes they don't accept the grains. They just, who's going to carry all that? And no question of cooking when they go to the forest. So they'll just live on root, fruits, berries, etc. Can you imagine? Somebody does one Shraddha, not Shraddha, the rituals for a departed soul. 1 year, what tapasya he has to do. So where are such brahmanas now? And Prabhupada says we don't have qualified brahmanas. Please understand the import of that statement, what Prabhupada is telling. Similarly, if a brahmana agrees to perform a horse sacrifice, I don't know the details, but I'm sure it will be much more austere for him after having performed this to free himself from all the reactions of having performed and taken so much of karma. So this business of priesthood involves so much of karma, so much of karma. And a brahmana, a learned brahmana knows what is the result of performing these priestly activities. Therefore, some brahmanas, they never accept priesthood. When Shukracharya married his daughter to Yayati, and then the daughter had some difficulty with Yayati. She came back to her father's house. Shukracharya condemned this priesthood. He said it is better to accept this unchavritti. Unchavritti means a brahmana never begs for any food, never performs any rituals where he will get some dana. Never. He will not accept dana. He will just live off the grains available in the marketplace. After some trading has happened, some grains will be dropped. You see? So those grains they collect. They collect fruits which have naturally fallen from the trees, and they are lying there after the person who owns the tree has picked up the fruits, the good ones or whatever, left over, he will take that. Or he will go to some forest, pick up some roots, fruits, berries which are just available there. He will never accept a priesthood. He will never accept dana. He will never accept any money. No question at all. So such brahmanas, even if they are highly qualified or learned, they will only at most teach somebody what they know without accepting any Guru Dakshina. Without accepting any Guru Dakshina, they will teach. So, when it is said here, Ushana performed 100 horse sacrifices, it's a great achievement. Each time he could find the right horse. Each time he performed, he could find the set of brahmanas who were qualified and were willing to act as the priest. Hota, Udgata, Advaryu, and Brahma. 4 kinds of priests he has to find each time he does the sacrifice. And each has got special qualifications. So that's why it is mentioned, Ushana was the performer of 100 horse sacrifices. Indra is famous as Shatakratu. One of his special qualifications for occupying the post of Indra is that he has performed 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas. So that's why that is particularly mentioned here. Why this only about this Ushana something is mentioned. 100 horse sacrifice. It's a very extraordinary thing. Now the next point I want to make is this Jamagha, son of Ushana, was Ruchaka. Ruchaka had 5 sons. Of them, one was Jamagha. Jamagha had no sons. And because he was afraid of his wife, Shaibya, so he did not accept another wife to have progeny. He didn't accept. Now, this Jamagha once, from the house of some royal enemy, he took one girl who was a prostitute. Now, I want to carefully explain to all of you from what we should have read and heard the explanations of Prabhupada. What does it mean, the term prostitute, when used in the scriptures? We generally know prostitute means illicit sex. That's all we know in our common, in day-to-day life, in common usage, we only know that. But in the Vedic culture, the term prostitute is used for a woman who is not a chaste woman. Any woman who is not a chaste woman is called a prostitute. Now, what does it mean some woman is a chaste woman? Then we will understand what is the meaning of prostitute. A chaste woman is a woman who is necessarily protected by father, husband, and grown-up son, or some elderly, proper guardian, and always under protection. She never mixes with any other man other than either her father or her husband or her guardian or son. Only one person she will mix, she will take shelter, she will interact. She will not interact with anybody else. Of course, there will be interactions with her other relatives who are connected with her specifically, like her sons, her daughters, her father-in-law, mother-in-law, appropriately, exactly as much as required. But intimate connection or being all the time with a particular person, only father in the young age, before marriage, after marriage, only husband, and if her husband passes away and she is a widow, then only her son or sons. And if there are no sons, then some other guardian. That's all. So, such a chaste woman is glorified. And if a woman does not maintain this standard of chastity, she is called a prostitute. For example, Indra, in his heavenly planet, Indraloka. He is the king of heaven, and in that position, he has got for his entertainment some Gandharvas who sing for his pleasure. He has got Apsaras who dance for his pleasure, just to entertain him. Now these dancing girls, they're called prostitutes. So what does it mean? They are entertaining another man other than their husband. See, these Apsaras are not married to Indra. They're not Indra's wives. So they have got a specific position and a specific service and a specific duty like that. But because they are entertaining a person other than their husband, therefore they are not considered as chaste women. They are called prostitutes. And the standard of a chaste woman is described even in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born, I'll read that portion. So many different people came to see the newborn child. Among them was Advaita Acharya's wife. One day, shortly after Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born, Advaita Acharya's wife, Sita Devi, who is worshipable by the whole world, took her husband's permission and went to see that topmost child with all kinds of gifts and presentations. She brought different kinds of golden ornaments, including armlets, necklaces, anklets, and bangles for the hands. There were also tiger nails set in gold, waist decorations of silk and lace, ornaments for the hands and legs, nicely printed silken saris, and a child's garment also made of silk. Many other riches, including gold and silver coins, were also presented to the child. Okay, there is something Prabhupada says about how Advaita Acharya was very rich, even though being a Brahmana. That I'm not going to go into now. Now hear this. Riding in a palanquin covered with cloth and accompanied by maidservants, Sita Thakurani came to the house of Jagannath Mishra, bringing with her many auspicious articles such as fresh grass, paddy, gorochana, turmeric, kunkuma, and sandalwood. All these presentations filled a large basket. Now hear this, Prabhupada's purport. The words Vastra Gupta Dola are very significant in this verse. Even 50 or 60 years ago in Calcutta, all respectable ladies would go to a neighboring place riding on a palanquin carried by 4 men. The palanquin was covered with soft cotton, and in that way there was no chance of seeing a respectable lady traveling in public. Chaste woman means she should not be seen by any other person. Particularly in public, she will not expose even her face. Ladies, especially those coming from respectable families, could not be seen by ordinary men. This system is still current in remote places. In the Oriental culture, this system was very prevalent and was strictly observed by respectable ladies, both Hindu and Muslim. Even now, and the Muslims, you know that the women are covered and their face is covered by the parda system. And among Hindus, the women cover their face with the portion of the sari they used to cover their head. When they come in public, they'll completely cover even their face. At home, they'll just cover their head when they are among known family members. They'll just cover their head. But otherwise, if they come in public, they'll completely cover their face also. So this is the standard of a chaste woman in the Vedic culture. So when it is said prostitute, don't mistake that they are simply lusty women who are just indulging in illicit sex. No. Of course, those are called also prostitute, but it is not just that. So here it is said, this girl, it is described, Bhojam, Kanyam, Aharashit, means he brought a girl, Bhojam, Prabhupada says in word for meaning, a prostitute used for sense gratification. She is meant to give entertainment to others. What kind of entertainment? It could just be singing, it could be dancing, it could be just offering some betel nut, some beverages, serving beverages. It could be any of these things. Moment she does that, she's considered a prostitute. So a chaste woman will never serve or entertain anybody else other than her husband and her husband's guests and her husband's only on the order of the husband. Only on the order of the husband. And she will do it as a service to her husband. That is the prime, that's the predominant consciousness. Chaste woman means she serves her husband in all possible ways that he wants her to serve him. So, when this Jamaga, actually, he was an exalted soul. He was no ordinary person. How do we know? So, when he brought that girl, upon seeing that girl sitting next to her husband, this Jamaga's wife, Shaibya, she was very angry. And she asked her husband, who is this girl sitting upon my seat? My seat means next to the husband on the chariot, a king. Next to the king, only a queen will sit. Nobody else will sit. So I am the queen and somebody else is sitting in my position. Who is this girl sitting? So then Jamaga replied, this girl will be your daughter-in-law. I brought this girl to make her my daughter-in-law. And the system was, the parents will choose the girl for the boy, or the parents will choose for their daughter the husband, the boy. So that was the system, except in Swayamvara. Swayamvara is an exception. Otherwise, the parents will choose. So Jamaga said, I have brought this girl. She is going to be your daughter-in-law, means she is going to be the wife of our son. So upon hearing these words, what did she reply? I am sterile. She is a barren woman. That's why he had no sons. That was described earlier verse. Jamaga had no sons. And I have no co-wife. You're not married any other woman as your wife. You're not accepted another wife. So how is it possible that this girl can be your daughter-in-law or my daughter-in-law? So how can this girl be my daughter-in-law? So Jamaga replied, my dear queen, I shall see to it that indeed you have a son and this girl will be your daughter-in-law. So then what did he do? So it's described, long, long ago, Jamaga had satisfied the demigods and pitas by worshipping them. Now by their mercy, Jamaga's words came true. Although Shaibya was barren, by the grace of the demigods, she became pregnant and due course of time gave birth to a child named Vidarbha. So this Jamaga is an exalted soul. Even though his wife was barren, because he had performed tapasya in the past and worshipped the demigods and pitas. So by their grace, he was able to conceive a child in his barren wife. These are all extraordinary things that is not possible for ordinary people. It's never possible. So, such extraordinary personalities, they are having special potency for doing extraordinary things. And these potencies are bestowed by those who have the power to bestow such empowerment. By empowerment, any person can do anything by empowerment. This is Prabhupada says, a disciple may not be qualified, but if he pleases his spiritual master, by the blessings of the spiritual master, he can do extraordinary things. And we see in the life of Srila Prabhupada, especially in the beginning days, when there were some few devotees who were sincerely serving Srila Prabhupada, but he empowered them and sent them to far-off places to preach and start a center. So one devotee in memories, he is telling, I was sent to Holland. I did not know the Dutch language. I don't have any experience. I am just 19 or 20 years old. I have no worldly experience. And I don't have money. I didn't even have a kartal. So I somehow reached Holland. What is that? Amsterdam is the capital. I reached Amsterdam. And then I started searching for some place to stay. And he knew that YMCA those days, Young Men's Christian Association, there is such a institution, organization. So they give free accommodation to people who are members of YMCA. So he went there and he said, I'm a traveler. I come on some work here. And I'm not a member of YMCA. Can you just give me a place to stay? And somehow they said, okay. They accommodated. And then there he met another boy who was a local boy. I don't know why he was staying there, that local boy. So then he made friendship with him. And together they would go out for kirtan. And kirtan, he will just clap the hands. He'll draw the attention. Then people will wonder, what is this boy doing? With another boy. That other boy is shy, obviously. He will not do kirtan in the beginning. He'll just watch what his friend is doing. And then he drew the attention of some people. And with the help of this boy, he was able to speak something in English, and the boy will translate in Dutch language, and a curious passerby or onlooker actually will inquire, what are you doing? What do you want to say? So then that other boy will translate into the Dutch language. He is come here on behalf of a spiritual master, and he wants to teach bhakti yoga. And if you are interested, he is willing to, speak to you like that. So then he got some interested people, gradually built up a center and called Prabhupada. So how is this possible? Only because of empowerment by Prabhupada. It's Prabhupada's power and potency. You see? That is bestowed on this disciple. And he sincerely just carried out the order of the Guru. So Prabhupada says, when the spiritual master gives an instruction or an order, along with that comes the empowerment. Not that separately you have to seek that. No. If you are a disciple and you are instructed or ordered by your spiritual master, along with that instruction or order comes the empowerment. So you simply have to carry. Just like Prabhupada, he went to America. It's not that he had a very well thought out program, plan, every detailed worked out before stepping into the ship or something. Nothing of that kind. He had some idea and he had experience, of course. And he was very wise and mature and elderly person. Yeah, that's all there. But so many things unfolded as time passed by. Prabhupada himself says, in the beginning I was just walking around in the streets, trying to figure out how should I actually preach to these people. I was trying to figure out a method. So, in this way, the empowerment by the spiritual master is a very, very important point. Of course, here, the example is that Jamaga had satisfied the demigods and pitas by worshipping them. Now he actually sought their blessings for having a son in his barren wife. And it was possible to have a son. And therefore, since before the child's birth, the girl had been accepted as daughter-in-law, Vidarbha actually married her when he grew up. So, this term prostitute should not be misunderstood in all cases as if some illicit sex is involved. No, it's not that at all. In many cases, it's not that. Most cases, it's not that. So, in the first canto, there is the instance where some well-known prostitutes, they came to receive Krishna when Krishna returned from Hastinapura to Dwarka after enthroning Yudhishthira Maharaj as the emperor of the world after the battle of Kurukshetra. Then to receive Krishna, so many citizens came. So some prostitutes also came to receive Krishna. And it is mentioned specifically, these prostitutes were devotees of Krishna. So somebody will say, how prostitute can be devotee? And if they're devotees, why are they prostitutes? So understand that they're devotees of Krishna, yes, but they are engaged in an activity like, for example, Devadasis in temples. Devadasi means they're servant of the deity. But because they are dancing in public for the pleasure of the deity, Utsava Murti. Utsava is there. So then the Utsava Murti has to be pleased by singing, by dancing, etc. So, generally men do this. Professional men do this. But if a woman does it, then she is not, a chaste woman will never do that. In public, she will never dance or sing. Even for the deity, that she will do only at her home. Only at her home she will do for the deity or for her husband, of husband's guest. She will never do it in public. So since the temple is a public place, if a woman sings for the deity, she is called a prostitute. So when it is said these prostitutes were devotees, please understand, they could be those who sing in the temple, in public, for the pleasure of the deity. So what's wrong in them being devotees? But the very fact that they have accepted to sing for the deity itself means they are devotees. So it's not surprising that they are devotees. So don't be surprised that they are devotees. Okay? So I'll stop here. Untitled Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.